Greetings gamers, FiOth here, and in this video I will be showing you the ideal settings to play Stellar Blade with. Some of them are up to personal preference of course, but rule of thumb for this vid is that I go through settings and pick the ones that will help you get the most out of the gameplay of the game whilst also optimizing how it looks. Not everything starts off as intended for the best quality of life experience, so I went through every single one, I combed them, and I will give you my choices so you can benefit from them. If you have any other thoughts about the matter or you think I could have optimized something differently, leave it in the comment section below so you can share it with the community. Without further ado, let's get to it. We will start from top to bottom and go into gameplay. Gameplay starts with difficulty. It's either the story mode, that's easy mode, just to follow the story with very little challenge, or normal mode, that is the way the game is intended to be played. I would certainly suggest normal mode so you have something to look forward to when it comes to the action and the game doesn't become a pushover. Hints will help you with progression when it comes to the very simple puzzles and the path that you need to follow. I would leave it on standard because sometimes something can be a bit obtuse, but the hints you'll be getting on this mode will not overwhelm you and break up your experience. Standard is just fine. Tutorials on for your first playthrough and off for all subsequent playthroughs, so you learn what everything does whilst you first go through the adventure, and then on they will not be intrusive and will not annoy you. Show records on. This is a quality of life choice. Whenever you pick up a stick, it will be briefly displayed on screen so you can click the prompt and go into reading it right away. This is good so you don't have to fumble around in menus. I certainly think leaving it on is recommended. Auto loot items is one of the most important options to run in this game. Activate it. It starts off as off here. This is the default option, but certainly leave it on because this will make Eve pick up all the experience, currency and items that drop here and there without you having to use a button prompt. Will make the game much less tiresome, and I'm really glad this started getting implemented in games like Rise of the Ronin as well. I don't want to click pick up item a million times, so leave this on. Ponytail length doesn't make any difference, it's just the looks for Eve, either long ponytail or short ponytail, whatever piques your fancy. Controls. Now there are two controls handling sensitivity. One is the normal vertical and horizontal sensitivity, and the other one is the vertical and horizontal sensitivity for aiming. The first one is just how fast the camera moves when you move it around Eve. The second dictates how fast it moves when you're aiming down sights with L2. So for movement here, I would recommend you go up to 3 or 4 so it is more responsive when you want to focus an enemy and take in your surroundings. And for the aiming, I would leave it at 0, or if I want even more precision, I take it down a notch, maybe -1. So if you want to make minute adjustments to hit weak points, you will be able to do so more easily. For flipping, I say no in every single game unless it is a flight simulator. Camera auto rotation is nice. When you are idle, it will relocate the cam so it comes behind Eve and you can have a better view of your surroundings. Adaptive triggers, yes, if you are using DualSense or a first-party controller like the horrible DualSense Edge. Off if you are using any other controller, because if you don't have adaptive triggers, this will send false signals to your controller. You don't have adaptive triggers, you leave it off, or you leave it on if you're using the stock controllers. Vibration maxed if you have a controller that has vibration, or turn it all the way down if you don't. Range aiming correction is pretty much aim assist. I think in general it's good to have it adjusted above 50%. This is not a shooter. The ranged firearm is very supplementary, so there's no reason to bust yourself over the head to get a target where you want them to be. I have it on 7, you can go even higher. Auto lock when attacking is good because you don't have to click lock every time. When you attack an enemy for the first time, it will lock on that enemy and you can continue your assault without the need to input additional commands. Sound, don't forget to pick the output that you'll be using. Headphones if you're using headphones, speaker for speakers, or automatic so the game will auto detect. I never trusted auto-detect in any piece of software since time immemorial, and I'm not gonna start now. Using headphones, I put it on headphones. Controller speaker depends. If you're using headphones, you will just hear noise if you have it on. If you're using a surround system and have it on, you will get some prompts via your controller. This, of course, has to do with what you are using, so act accordingly. Here I have master volume on 0 because I don't want you to hear interference from the game whilst I'm recording this, but this should be 100%, and then I go effects 90, music 80, and voice volume 100, so the voice will always pop out and be more perceivable. I do this in every game. I suggest you do it here as well. For display, when you start the game, HDR will be off, and you really want it to be on. This game veers towards the grayish sepia natural colors color palette, and having HDR will really make them pop. If you are unlucky and you don't have an HDR enabled display, of course, you leave this off. Then I suggest you go into display settings and manage your display settings in accordance to what your TV or monitor is doing. I cannot give you a finite example of this because it all depends on your TV's settings. Go in here and tinker a bit. Motion blur, I put it really low, and camera shake I leave at default, although on second thought, you don't really want a lot of this. I'll put it 2 and 2. Blur you can also take entirely out of the equation. I know some people hate blur. For me, it's easy on the eyes when fastly rotating the camera, so you don't see anything breaking up with the V-Sync. But motion blur in general, if maxed out, can be very intrusive. Keep it low. The most important thing you can do in this game is fiddle around with the graphics modes, and because I will be outputting this video at 60 frames for your enjoyment, I cannot showcase what the quality mode will do to your game, but prioritizing resolution will give you a 4K image with 30 frames locked. Balance is 4K upscaled, which is by no means the native quality, but it tries to simulate it 60 frames. And if you go performance, the game will do everything to keep a locked 60 whilst sacrificing more quality. For me, and for whatever Digital Foundry's opinions was to you, balanced is the way to go. Keeps the game crispy enough and responsive enough for you to enjoy in the fullest. I would by no means ever go for the prioritization of resolution in this kind of game. Very fast, very responsive, very reliant on perfect parties that are split-second inputs, and running 30 frames is gonna ruin your experience. Take it from me, I've been playing action games for the past 20 years. 30 frames is not the way to go, no matter what clueless people try to tell you online. 60 all the way. Subtitles and language is what you pick. I would go to display speaker name and put it on because sometimes in the noise and the fighting you will be hearing some dialogue, but you might not be able to discern who is talking. So having display speaker name on will make it so you always know who talking. And for the subtitle size, it all depends on what kind of monitor or TV you're using, how large it is, because if it's a 55-inch or an even bigger one, having subtitles as on medium might be overkill. You might put it to small. It's just letters popping out because they're white against brown or black or gray environments. You don't need them to take up too much of your screen. Subtitle background will put a black space behind the letters to make them look even more poppy, but I don't really like this effect. I never liked it in any game. I leave it off, again up to personal preference. Now, interface. This is an interesting one. If you go for full immersion, go HUD should be dynamic, so when there is no combat, the HUD will fade off. You won't have it on the bottom left or the bottom right. It will deprive you of some knowledge of your condition because you'll have to perform an attack on pretty much nothing to bring it to the forefront again. For me in these games, especially if you're running for the first time, I say that always on is a good idea because we'll have an understanding of your situation and condition 100% of the time. Then again, if you want to immerse yourself more, I would put it on dynamic. HUD size dictates the size again, same thing as with subtitles, and for the HUD background, it is again a black gradient behind the interface. In this case, it is very subtle, it's just a tiny blackened area behind the letters, so I leave it on just in case something is very whitish. Not as intrusive as the dialog box, so it's not as offensive on the eye as the boxes on dialog are. Now, accessibility is a plethora of accessibility options for people who might need them. So always displays center point stage, always displays a dot in the center of the screen so you can orient faster, and it replicates some of the options we found in the previous menus. If you went through every single menu and picked what you want, you don't really need to fiddle with this. The three last ones are important. QTE auto success, if you are ailed by something that has to do with your reflexes, you put it on and the QTEs will auto succeed. And fishing control replacement will help you with the fishing mini games. I haven't had much experience with this yet, so I don't really know if it's gonna be extremely helpful. It is an afterthought, it is a side game mode, so pick what you will here, it's not gonna alter your enjoyment of the game that much. Controller just lets you see what your bindings are. I would suggest, if you're using a controller with paddles, I am just going to relay this verbally because if you are, you know what I mean. One of your paddles should be up and one of your paddles should be down, as shown here, the use potion and use item commands. So you don't have to take your left thumb off the movement stick to either heal or use a consumable. You just have them on your paddles and you use your middle fingers to click them and be more responsive according to what's happening on screen. So this is it, gamers, my suggested settings to enjoy.
Subscribe, like and share for more content like this. I will be covering everything in Stellar Blade. Until next time, be well, stay frosty and always travel perfection. Cheers!